I'll do that one more time. The Robert C. Williams Museum of Papermaking welcomes you to Lessons from a Life in Animation, a Fast Film Fest 2021 panel. We'll be hearing from 3 animators who are also professors at universities here in Georgia. But before we hear from Sandy Chamberlain, Timothy Steele, and Demetrius Dukes, I'd like to take the time to thank our partners. The Georgia Tech Library, ASIFA South, and Arts at Tech. I'd also like to tell you a little about Fast Film Fest. This is our 3rd year of Fast Film Fest. The parameters are simple. Original animated films that are 5 minutes or shorter. The entries must highlight the use of paper, and it's free to participate. You don't need any prior experience, and we share the films via a screening as well as online. And now, without further ado, let me introduce Sandy Chamberlain. Sandy Chamberlain grew up in Southern California and obtained her BFA in the entertainment arts with a concentration in animation at California State University, Fullerton. She has worked professionally as an animator, storyboard artist, illustrator, and in technical direction. She moved to Atlanta, Georgia in 2007 to attend Savannah College of Art and Design for her master level studies in animation and illustration. She has been teaching at the college level for almost 2 decades and continues to be curious about the future of entertainment arts while keeping current with technological advances in this field of study. Sandy has always had a fascination with moving imagery and has a passion for teaching commercial arts. She is currently an assistant professor of animation and illustration and the coordinator of the digital animation program at Kennesaw State University in the School of Art and Design. Her work has been shown in national as well as international galleries and film festivals. Okay.
Wait, I had to unmute myself. Hi. How's everybody doing tonight? Hopefully everybody's doing okay. All right. Oh, there's the thumbs up. Wonderful. I always do that too. So, I guess I'm supposed to talk about my life. Kind of weird, but so I started out like Jerusha said, in Southern California. I grew up in Whittier. I went to Cal State Fullerton. I was very lucky to sort of fall into this amazing school that was a state school that taught animation, because that sort of wasn't even heard of. It's still kind of not heard of today, and it really wasn't heard of back, oh gosh, don't want to date myself, in 1997. It was a long time ago. But I was very fortunate, and one thing I remember very vividly, Dana Lamb was one of the main professors of the animation program back then, and I went on a tour during high school, and I was just sitting in front of the this kind of gallery space that they had, where they had all these student works behind glass, and it just looked so complex and so amazing. And I was staring at it, and he walked right up to me, and I was all by myself. I'd kind of broken off from the group, and he was saying, "Oh yeah, that's our students' work, and this is for animation." And I just said, I gushed, and I said, "Oh well, I just love animation. I've been, I bet everybody here, used to copy. Did anybody used to copy? Oh, I'm really dating myself. The VHS covers of like the old, All Dogs Go to Heaven and The Secret of Nim. All the Don Bluths was my favorites, and of course all the old 70s Disney stuff like Jungle Book and Oliver and Company was in the 80s and stuff. Just amazing things. And I would just copy everything, and I always drew a little bit, but I never imagined that my love for animation could actually be a career. I just didn't think I was good enough. And I remember distinctly Dana telling me, I told him, I said, well, I can't do anything like that. And he says, well, sure you can't. That's why you come here, and we teach you how to do that. And just that simple notion really kind of set me off, and it made everything possible. And, a little did I know then that I would become a college professor as well, because that just was, I didn't think that would be in the cards for me. I wanted to be like a background illustrator at Disney or something. That's what I was really going to go for, but life takes you on these different journeys. So I got to go to Cal State Fullerton with amazing professors, Dana Lamb, Cliff Cramp, Don Longerberg, Larry Johnson, and Marshall Vandruff, and Brian Kennan, and Christian Hill. Just these amazing professors. Marshall Vandruff is part of what he does with Proco now online. He's a master draftsman, and I took many of his classes, and I actually took his workshops as well. I was very lucky and fortunate to take classes from him. You can see him online now. If you look at the podcast, the Draftsman podcast and YouTube channel, it's amazing. Him and Proco just kind of talk all the time, so you can still be taught by Marshall if you guys go online. And I can't tell you how cool Marshall is, and how much I learned from him back when I was in California. And I moved to the Atlanta area in 2005, and decided to look around for some master's degree schools. And I went to Art Institute, and then I went to SCAD, and I settled on SCAD here in Atlanta, and had a wonderful time there. It was during the recession, actually, and right before I got hired at SCAD, when I first moved here, I was actually hired to teach graphic design and animation at a school called High Tech Institute. And it was a tech school, so everybody would get an AA degree, and we taught, believe it or not, we taught like Photoshop in a month. And then we would move on and teach like different, we would do Maya and on Autodesk, all the Autodesk programs in a month too. It was a very fast-track program. Students would come and meet with me from 6 to 11 at night in the evening. So I was already working as a teacher, with college-level students when I decided to go back and get my master's. And I said, I really got bit by the teaching bug. It just really was fun for me, and I can't tell you how much I enjoyed it. And it just sort of set me on a path. So I said, well, if I get a master's, I'll buff up my portfolio, if anything, and maybe I'll teach. So I started off getting a master's degree in an MFA in animation at SCAD. And then, of course, life took another turn, and the recession hit, and the job with High Tech, they closed their doors in Atlanta. So I got laid off, unfortunately. But I left in good terms. And then for the first time since I was 15, I didn't have at least 1 or 2 jobs, and I was going to school and had jobs at the same time. So I was like, what am I going to do with myself? But I just went to college, and that was probably the best thing, because whenever you're studying in a master's program, you really, especially towards the end, you really need that time to focus on your work. So, of course, I doubled up my work, and I decided to get an MFA in illustration, because I had taken all my upper division electives in illustration, and the people in the Julie Mueller-Brown and Rick Lovell kind of said, hey, why don't you come over and do an MFA in illustration and finish off an MA in animation? And I said, well, I didn't know that was an option. So I did that, and I dual degreed at SCAD. And during my last quarter at SCAD, I was lucky enough to be interviewing at the Art Institute of Atlanta, Decatur, where I met Drusha. And I was finishing up my thesis, and I got lucky and I got hired. And I had to push through all my transcripts really quick over the 2-week break between the quarters, because we were all in quarter systems. And I got the job. I was lucky enough to get the job. And of course, it's always the thing that you say you can do that you're like, oh yeah, I can do that, but it's not really your favorite. They found out I could do 3D animation, and I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't done this in forever. So, and my dad was laughing, because he's like, oh, I guarantee you the first job you're going to get is going to be in 3D animation teaching. And I said, no, Dad, that's not going to be it. And there it was, first ever class. But it was amazing, and I've met a lot of wonderful students over the years. Sharanda Wilburn, who is known by Saw Angela, was one of my first students, and she just finished a portrait of Nikema Williams, and she's done one of Stacey Abrams. She's done a lot of the murals that are really famous down in Atlanta. So it's amazing. That's another thing about what's amazing about being a teacher is you get to make these connections with students, and 15 years later you still see what's going on in their life, and that's amazing. And I don't think I would be doing anything else, to tell you the truth. And then it just sort of has been snowballing since then. I've worked at the Art Institute of Atlanta, Decatur. I got hired at Kennesaw State on the Marietta campus in their new media arts department. And then I heard murmurings of an animation degree starting at Kennesaw State. And so I went over and I met Director Sipp and talked to Craig Brasco, who was spearheading the program at the time, and said, I really, really want to be a part of this. I love animation. I love teaching animation. This is exactly what I want to do with my career. I ended up doing intensive teaching internships when I was at SCAD. This was just, it was it for me. And lucky enough, they had me over there, and I've been over there ever since doing some pretty cool stuff. So I don't want to ramble on too much, but what I can do is I can share my screen and show you guys some of the student work and what is kind of expected when you finish up your degree and you're in the portfolio class and you're making your exiting portfolio with us at Kennesaw State. And then I can also show about a 5-minute short film that one of our recent graduates, Seth Bird, has produced, and it was shown at the CFAC 2020 Film Festival. And I'd like to show it for you guys here to sort of give you an idea of the kind of work that's coming out of Kennesaw State. All right, let me come up here and share my screen. Let's see. Okay. All right. Can you guys see the PDF? Hopefully everybody can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. It's really just to showcase the artwork, but you know, if anybody's interested, when you graduate from Kennesaw State, we're trying to set you guys up for, you know, what you might need to get out there and get an entry-level position. So nowadays, most things are digital. So we have you set up a website with your portfolio that has maybe some of your still imagery and your video work. And when we say still imagery, we say, you know, anything like your concept art, your illustrations, your character designs, your environmental background illustration designs, anything like that can go into different galleries. And then with your animations, you'd have a demo reel that's about 1 to 1.5 minutes. And that's if anybody isn't really familiar with a demo reel, it's just a compilation of all of your different animation tests. I still call them tests because I'm old, and I actually learned on hand flipped animation at Cal State Fullerton with the actual big light tables and the wheels and the flipping paper animation. So we would call them pencil tests. So I still call rough animations and animation, even polished animation tests. You also work on a senior film, which you'll see Seth's in a minute. It's a 2 to 5 minute animated short. And we really are gearing you guys kind of like Cal Arts, and what we did back at Cal State Fullerton is we wanted to, and I have a lot of love for SCAD, but we want to compete with the big guys. So I learned early on at a state school, and it's what I've tried to kind of infuse at Kennesaw, is that you want to kind of put your best foot out there. And how do you get experience when you don't have any experience? Well, make a film. Put it into film festivals. Get it shown. A lot of people don't realize that you have 2 years to film festival a film after the completion date of the film, whether it's done at school and you can film festival it under the student wing, which is usually a lot of low cost to no cost film festival entries, or under the professional wing. So you have 2 years to film festival that film. And in that time, if you get into film festivals and if you get recognized with awards, even better. A lot of the awards have a little bit of money attached to the award, which is always nice. But really, you start getting noticed in this big way, and you can get resume stamps before, before you're even trying to get out there and get into the studios. And it looks really good to studios if it says, well, hey, this person's done a film, and look, it's already being shown everywhere. We should ask to see that film, or we should go find where we can see that film. And then we have you guys do all your branding and, of course, resumes and letters of interest, which is also known as a cover letter. We also do a panel interview with all the students as they exit. And then we look for drawingship and draftsmanship. In our drawing, we look for draftsmanship skills, right? Solid drawing skills and perspective skills. Oh, and I'm sorry, I should scroll back up here really quick. This was by a recent graduate, Ryan Penrod. He is now at Bento Box as he started as a background illustrator, and now he's a lead background illustrator. He graduated all the work you're seeing here is from our first graduating class, which the students graduated in the May of 2019. This was Mary Catherine Turner. She's now working as a graphic designer. Again, Ryan Penrod is up here at the top. Madison Goodwin is the Cannonball. Ryan Drescher is the Grim Reaper. Courtney Carlis is she did a lip sync with the ketchup and mustard bottle there. And then we have some work featured by Jacob Kempton. He did, this is from his short film Maple, and some other concept art that he had created. We also, when coronavirus isn't happening, we showcase all of our seniors' work at a film festival that's held in Atlanta at the Plaza Theater. And we invite industry professionals and friends and family and public at large to join us for these events. And we have had a few graduating classes since COVID hit, and we're going to be making that up with a block of animation probably either in December of 2021 or May of 2022. We'll keep you guys all updated about this. Danny Brewer decided to do a stop motion animation for his senior film, which was super cute and funny and kind of gruesome because it was about a murder. It was called Morose Murders. Here's some concept art by Douglas Klein and Ryan Drescher. Douglas's is on the left and Ryan's is on the right here. These are some stills from Ryan Drescher's film The Magic Shop. And then I think the last pages here, Madison Goodwin, this is from her film, and some marketing stuff that Karen Maximos put together for our Owls Film Festival. This is the ones on the bottom right are also stills from her film Summer Things. The little owl was also Karen Maximos, and then Tyler Green had the little camera, and this is a shot from his film. And the last image here is it was from a micro short that was under 18 seconds long that Ryan Penrod did and entered into the Giphy Film Festival, which he got into. All right, so let me close this out. Let me come back over here because I'm still sharing my screen. Let me open up the film. And this is by Seth Bird. And he's one of our recent graduates from spring of 2020, so just last year, and he is now a background illustrator at Bento Box here in Atlanta. Let me share this one with you guys. Okay, all right, and I'm going to play the movie now.
Deep in the woods, on top of a hill, sat a small farm, a barn, and a windmill. The Bun family lived here, and they all loved to run, but no one loved running more than Little Bun. She liked to race and rush, to speed and have fun. She liked to skip and hop, but she really loved to run. She ran around Mama Bun when she was doing her chores. She ran around other kids, like Myrtle from next door. She ran through the hay in the big red barns. She ran day and night all over Carrot Farm. She ran in the winter all covered in snow. She ran in the spring when the sunflowers grow. She ran in the summer at the beach when it's hot. She ran in the fall as a Halloween robot. She ran on Thanksgiving in her turkey tube socks, and on Christmas morning she ran in her box. She ran with red hearts on Valentine's Day. She would hand them all out, then she would run away. Little Bun is friendly, but pals are hard to find. When you run so fast, you leave them behind. One day she tripped on a rock and fell down. Bang! She tumbled, landing hard on the ground. Mama Bun came running with Little Bun in her arms. They got in the car and left Carrot Farms. They went to the hospital and had her leg x-rayed. Little Bun didn't mind. She was very brave. The nurse gave her a treat, and the doctor was nice too. They sat Little Bun down and told her what to do. You have to get rest when your leg is in a cast. If you want to heal, you cannot go fast. You cannot race or rush. You cannot speed or run. You cannot skip or hop until the healing is done. Little Bun was sad. Having a cast is no fun. What do people do, she asked, when you cannot run? Mama Bun smiled, tucked her in and said, everything will be okay. Now it's time for bed. That night, she dreamed her leg was healed. Running on the clouds, she giggled and squealed. Faster and faster she ran through the sky. Everyone waved as Little Bun passed by. She jumped and she shouted. She wasn't sad anymore. But then she woke up to someone knocking at her door. It was Myrtle the Turtle. I have your things, she said, pulling her blue wagon up to the hospital bed. I heard about your leg and am sorry about your cast. I've been trying to catch you, but you always run too fast. This is your red heart from Valentine's Day, and here's your turkey sock from Thanksgiving Day. Here's your robot arm, I found it Halloween night. And here's something you lost, it's your carrot flashlight. Myrtle had returned all the things that she'd found. Then Little Bun asked, "Wanna stick around?" They talked and they played and had a real blast. Little Bun smiled when Myrtle signed her cast. In a month or two, her leg was unharmed. Now Little Bun and Myrtle run around Carrot Farm.
That was great, Sandy. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, yeah, of course. Absolutely. Do the not share screen thing anymore. All right. I do that. There we go. I think we're good now. So thanks, everybody. And oh, my last little tidbit that I think is super cool, I told Drusha earlier, is when I was at Cal State Fullerton, I was part of the first graduating class in animation at Cal State Fullerton, and then I helped to graduate the first and digital animation class at Kennesaw State. So it's sort of bookended, and it's been a highlight of my career, and I just love it. So thank you.
And now, let's see. I'll introduce Timothy Steele. Tim Steele has been a professor at SCAD for 7 years. He specializes in clothing and hair simulation. And within 2 years of starting in the visual effects industry, he was a supervisor at Rhythm and Hues, working on films such as Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Incredible Hulk, and Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian. After Rhythm and Hues, he worked on several films at Dreamworks Animation, including Megamind and How to Train Your Dragon 2. I'll pass this on to Tim.
Good. Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Well, yeah, I guess I'm supposed to talk about my life too. I first started, I don't know, I guess when I was in high school, I was into video editing and playing with After Effects and just teaching myself different things. And then I just decided to go to art school. I like drawing and painting, so I went to USC Aiken in South Carolina. It was our local college at that time. So I just drew and painted for 4 years, but there was a digital art class. So I took that and I ended up using Photoshop and Illustrator and After Effects. And we did a little bit of animation with that. And then they had a really ancient 3D program called Infinity. And even by when I was in college, it was ancient. So I actually really loved it. And then I got a hold of Maya. I was doing an internship at the Department of Energy. just editing videos for them. And yeah, it was great. The main thing I learned in undergrad was after I took those digital art classes, I went to my local print shop kind of arrogantly, like, hey, look at my portfolio that I just learned how to do. And she looked at it and was like, all right, well, we'll give you a test. So she's like, go home and make me a white elephant flyer. I was like, I didn't even know what that meant. It turns out it's like a, I don't know, like a yard sale type flyer. So I drew a little elephant with it holding a teacup and did the layout for it. And I brought it back to her in like 2 hours, and she was incredibly impressed that no one had even brought it back the same day before. But I had it back to her in 2 hours. So she gave me the job right there. So that's kind of where like my professional career started, I guess, just doing graphic design. And I had some basically working in print shops got me through all of my undergrad and then part of my grad school. So after undergrad, I went to in experiencing infinity. I got a hold of Maya, and I went to grad school at Clemson for 2 years, and that was an experience. They taught me very little Maya. I had to learn most of it on my own, and then but most of it was programming, like that I was terrible at. So I wrote a ray tracer and Photoshop plugins and all kinds of stuff in C++ and hated every minute of it. And then was like, I'm gonna apply for a texturing artist because I was pretty good at Photoshop and painting, and I'm like, I can get a job surfacing. Well, a job opened up for character effects, and a previous student got a job at Rhythm and Hues. So she's like, well, give me your portfolio. So I gave her my portfolio, and my interview went horribly. They were like, oh, what about this blanket on that's simulated in your film? I'm like, well, I did all the texturing and modeling. Like it says on my demo reel that I was only responsible for that part. And they're like, oh, okay. I was like, I can tell you how to do it. So I walked them through how I would set up the cloth simulation, and they're like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, I'm not getting that job. And then I got a phone call back like, hey, you have an offer in LA. Can you move in 2 weeks? And I was like, yes, I can. So I actually dropped out of grad school and went to LA in 2 weeks and started working at Rhythm and Hues. When I was at Rhythm and Hues, what I learned from the print shop was people like things fast. So basically, my focus was to not only meet the quality standard, but to do it faster than everyone around me. So I just read a lot of the documentation on their software because everything was proprietary. I knew nothing going into the company. They owned all of it. So just reading all their documentation, I was training people in 3 months just working there. So it's like you can do it. You just have to put your head down and just grind through at the beginning. And then it eases up quickly for you if you just put all the effort in up front, is what I found, especially with animation. I try to instill that in my students. I'm like, when are you going to learn this? If you're not learning it now, are you going to wait till you're a junior or a senior? So my big thing to you guys is start early. Don't wait for people to teach you. Go jump online, start learning it on your own now. And then when you get other professors, like all the cool stuff we just saw, you can start mining them for information that you wouldn't normally get out of class. Well, after while I was at Rhythm and Hues, worked on a bunch of movies. It was really fun. They were all live action and with 3D integration. And then I got an offer at Dreamworks, and I jumped on that. Dreamworks is like the place where 3D people retire. It's like the cushiest job on the planet. Dreamworks, I worked on Megamind, and then Turbo, Rise of the Guardians, How to Dragon Your Dragon 2. And then I can actually show you, this is my demo reel from 2013. It's very old. Let's see. Let's see if it's going pretty slow. But this might give you an idea of what character effects is. Character effects is going to be clothing and hair simulation. So this is the Hulk. did all the deformation on his skin and his hair blowing in the sonic wave effect, and on his pants. This was another thing about learning fast. This is North from Rise of the Guardians. He has all this hair on his body and on his coat, and Maya couldn't handle it. So they're like, we need you to learn Houdini and develop the system for his hair. So basically I had 3 months over the summer to learn a whole nother 3D package and develop the hair system for North there. Whoops, sorry, started over. Let's see, yeah, North. This is Tom Cruise. This is a facial replacement, so that's not actually Tom Cruise. We scanned his face and then rigged it and then animated it to actually his performance, which is pretty interesting. Some fur on the chipmunks, bag tearing. Basically what character effects is, what I've done is, it basically, once animation's done, you have to make it perfect. And you have to do anything that the character interacts with in the environment, like that blanket, his cape, even the grass and the tomatoes, had to make it grow. But you're basically the last team before lighting. So you have to just make sure everything works before lighting gets it. This was one of the hardest shots I ever did, and it was like, I think the third shot I ever had. Like, all the chipmunks are actually animated inside of each other, so I had to pull them all apart and get them all out of each other, and then run their cloth sim and then their hair sim. But that was a pretty fun shot. And the Hulk again. But the Hulk has actual muscle system underneath of there. He actually has blood maps. I had to pump the blood through there. All kinds of stuff we had to mess with. But that is my demo reel. And then after Dreamworks, I had kids. You know, life changes, priorities change. So I started looking for teaching jobs that weren't in a big city, and I found SCAD, and it's been really good ever since. But yeah, I hope that helps some of you. Mainly, jump on it early. Don't wait.
Thank you, Tim. And it's a real treat to get to see your demo reel too.
Thanks. Yeah. I wish I had an updated one. There's just no reason if you're not looking for a job, I guess.
Okay, let me get a slide. All right. Last but not least, we've got Demetrius Dukes. Demetrius Dukes is an assistant professor of art and animation at Columbus State University. He received an MFA in Media Technology and Entertainment from Florida Atlantic University. His academic research is centered around exploring 20th century art forms and their influence on contemporary interactive platforms. Duke's work has been showcased in numerous exhibitions and film festivals, including the Flaming Film Festival, the Brouhaha Film Festival, and Remark Visual Journal. All right, Demetrius, you're up.
Hey, everyone. So yeah, I guess I can start giving a little backstory about myself. And I've been so inspired by the last two presenters, so I'll also share some of my work as well. I started out in animation actually as a student, right, being very confused, going around into these various art classrooms and just realizing that I wanted more. Right, I went into art school thinking, I was going to be a drawer, a drawing artist, or a painting artist. And I would leave my painting classes, and I'm wondering, how do I push the envelope further than just sort of throwing these colors on a canvas? And one of my genre of art that I really loved was I loved expressionism. I really loved this sort of chaotic art form. Excuse my dog in the background. I really love this very chaotic art form, and just sort of really the human mind's ability to sort of understand this barbaric form of mark making. And then I started thinking to myself, I think in my junior or soft, I think it was my junior year, like, you know what, I need to do something that will allow me some sort of employment. And then just like all other artists, at the time it was, oh, if you want to be make money as an artist, then you have to do graphic design. And then I was like, all right, wonderful. So I transitioned over into taking, graphic design courses, and I actually ended up getting my associates in graphic design. But fun fact, I found out I don't particularly care for graphic design. It just wasn't for me, right? So I felt like, oh my God, I've wasted, about 3 years so far in college, and I have no idea what I want to do. And lo and behold, I remember walking down the art hallway at my college, and I saw just a flyer on the wall that's like intro to 3D animation. Like, you know what? Spring semester, I'm just gonna try it. I tried everything else; it couldn't hurt, right? And I get into this class, and I immediately, to say I fell in love was a complete understatement. It was the first time that while I look around, like most of my classmates, it's like, oh my God, what is this this software? What is this? Why is this so difficult? I came in here thinking animation was fun, and I was like, wait, you guys aren't having fun? Like, I'm loving this, right? Moving around from I think we started off, just with modeling and asset creation, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. We start talking about like texturing, and for me, I'm just applying all of my artistic background, thinking about like working in clay. When we started talking about like digital sculpting, I'm thinking about adding clay to my models as I'm moving through the process. And then I never looked back. I never went into another art classroom. All of my classes henceforth were all animation driven. And I remember in my earlier works, I wanted to try to find a way to capture or revisit a lot of that experimentation that I missed from my time as an artist. And when I started coming up to my senior exhibition, I was thinking to myself, what's the best way for me to do this? So I started to put together a bunch of experimental animations that were centered around really just, it was an exploration of just color and a barrage of image and sound, like this juxtaposition of sound, like these experimental films. And I remember shopping them around to film festivals. And, as a student, I'm feeling very discouraged. I'm like, oh man, no one's gonna appreciate this chaos that I put together. And then next thing you know, I'm winning, best experimental film and, best experimental sound, and these sort of things that you really take for granted. And then, so fun fact, at one of these shows, at these screenings, I happened to run into a guy that is still a really great friend of mine to this day, called Dean Lyon. Dean Lyon worked in the animation industry for years. At the time, he was coming off of a film called Lord of the Rings. He was the VFX supervisor then, and he pulled me to the side. He's like, I was really inspired by, your works. Like, it was the only thing that you showed that, it was the only thing that I seen that had this sense of experimentation. And we pulled me aside and we started talking. And then I was so nervous. I remember going home and I was like, oh my God, I just met Dean Lyon. My career's about to take off. It's going to be so awesome. Everyone's like, who's Dean Lyon? I'm like, Lord of the Rings. What do you mean? So, so I remember hanging out with Dean a couple of times, and he's like, hey, I have this project. And he's like, I think I think your touch will be pretty nice for it. So I remember he gave me one of my first introductions into the industry, and he's like, I want you to help me come up with a promotional material for this series that I have coming up. And the series was called what was it called? I think it was so weird. He's like, it's called Ballroom Dance Fitness. I was like, Dean, what is that? And he's like, think ballroom dancing meets P90X. I was like, what? I was like, what am I supposed to do here? And he was like, I want to create a promotional graphic. I want to create a motion graphic, sort of an intro for the pitch for the client. And I sat back and I remember And I remember, talking to all my friends, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell to do here. Ballroom dancing meets P90X. What do you do with that? And I remember, sending him my pitch, and I gave it to him. He's like, all right, cool. I'll be in touch. And then he got back to me, I think maybe 3 or 4 days later, and he was like, yeah, unfortunately, it didn't go anywhere. The client didn't like the pitch, so we had to go back to the drawing board. And around that time, just as an artist coming out of the gate, those were my first, paying gig, and it was, it wasn't a success like I wanted it to be. And ultimately, I ended up going back into graduate school. And while in graduate school, so another funny story, one of my side jobs, one of the guys that I was working with, his name was Carlos Barrera. And I'm working in this art store while I'm in graduate school. And I meet this guy and we're talking. I was like, oh, I'm a 3D animator, trying to find my way in the world. And Carlos was like, oh, my son works doing that kind of stuff. And I'm like, what does he do? And he's like, I don't know. He plays games, something, I don't know. And he was just so dismissive. And he's like, he's working on this game right now. It has something to do with a detective. And it's something. And it's like L.A. Noir. I'm like, wait, your son works for Rockstar? And he's like, yeah, his name is Geronimo Barrera. And I'm like, he's a VP or something. So I'm like, just this very continuous serendipitous, just these situations where I'm running into these guys. And I'm like, wait, Carlos, I've worked with you for 6 months. And you're just now telling me that your son is a VP at Rockstar. I'm like, could we not have fast forwarded to this part of the conversation earlier? And then I remember, so here we go again, like part two. I remember being invited to a barbecue at Geronimo's, one of his summer homes in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I remember, I don't think I ate or drank anything. I'm just nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a great opportunity for me. And I remember sitting down and I spent at least a few hours just talking to Geronimo. He's such a great guy. And he was giving me all these, these tidbits about, navigating the industry. And he was telling me that, unfortunately, one of the things that he hates the most about his job has to do with a lot of the temporary hires when projects are just getting started, and they bring on these artists, and then once they a lot of temporary contracts. And he's like, these same guys that I was able to bring in, I unfortunately have to let go. And I sat and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what do I don't want that, right? I don't want to get into the door and then just be booted out. So at the time, I went back and I'm like, okay, I have to finish my MFA, and then where do I go from here? And as I approached my MFA, I started thinking, okay, what do I do for my thesis? How do I sum up just sort of everything that I have already been doing? And while a lot of my classmates, everyone was doing, animated shorts and animated films, and I wanted to try to find a way to sort of, I guess, pull influence from everything that I have experienced so far. So I went through my graduate studies actually transitioning into interactivity more. And I really, I taught myself Unreal Engine at the time. And at the time, the Blueprint coding system had just had just been introduced to the interface. And it was like that last piece of the puzzle that I needed. My time in Maya and playing around with Mel scripts and Python, I'm not the greatest coder in the world. So being able to bypass that and be a little bit more node based, I loved it. And I ended up producing a interactive VR experience, and I called it Erase. And I remember, shopping this around and talking about it and giving my audiences sort of a glimpse into my life, trying to find that magical recipe as an artist. Like, I think one of the things that we overlook is the creative process a lot. Like, what is the creative process? Where do we pull all of these various influences? How do we know what the next piece, that we produce that is of sufficient wealth, where does it come from? And that's what that piece was for me. And just as soon as I graduated, I actually I put my stuff back out there, and I got a call to tour 2 universities. Surprisingly, here in Columbus State, and then I also got a call from Columbus College of Art and Design. and it's like, hey, we really love your work, love to bring you up. And I go, and when I got to Columbus, I had no idea that Columbus, Georgia, that is, I had no idea they didn't have an animation. So they were actually looking for me to start the animation program, and so fast forward, that's what I did. I accepted the job here in Columbus, and it's been a journey. I've been really loving testing these students. This is the second year that the curriculum has gone live here, and one of my focuses that I really try to instill into my students is just experimentation. Don't settle. Don't. Oftentimes, I find situations where students come in and they're like, I want to work in animation and I don't know where to start. And then, I'm just like, I'm sure some of my other presenters, we start very, very, very fundamental. We start talking about those animation principles, and we're like, okay, what's the difference between pose to pose, straight ahead animation? And then how do you test that, right? So I love to get my students away from being focused on the software and more so get acquainted with the process. Your medium is completely up to you as the artist, but and what you do with that. Discover your own journey along the way. And even though I do teach my courses predominantly from a 3D animation perspective, I always have at least 2 or 3 major assignments where the students are not allowed to produce any animated content digitally. They have to step away from the computer. And most of them usually, rely on stop motion or some sort of experimental form of mark making. And I think that, we've been able to find this beautiful balance between art and animation and or interactivity, if you will, from my own personal research. So if I have the opportunity, I'd like to screen share and just share a bit of some of my works as well. Can I? Is that? But I'm not familiar with this interface, so please forgive me.
So up near the top of the screen, there should be a little thing that looks like a monitor. A little icon. Click that. Yeah.
Got it.
And then that
coming through. Is it coming through?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So here's a glimpse at some of the projects that I've worked on over time. And as I mentioned before, as an artist working, I really love to move around a lot in terms of the animation workflow, the production pipeline. Sometimes I get caught up in just simple character creation. I really love to find ways to experiment with form making, how to distort the human figure. One of the most recent pieces that I worked on that just did a circuit in a few film festivals is this project called Bastile's Passage, where I took basic motion capture data and applied it to this abstract character that I developed. So I was experimenting a lot with what's this, drawing a blank here. What's this program? It's not Mesh. It is used for fluid simulation in Maya. Begins with a B, I believe. I'm drawing a blank, but I'll come back. Not Bifrost. There's another. Yes. There's another. Yeah, I played around with Bifrost, but there's another. It creates the illusion of simulation without all the particle effects. It's not. It's just. It'll come back to me when it's not relevant, probably towards the end. But that was a big challenge for me within this project. I'll go ahead and just play it, and then I can share. I'll also like to share some of the examples of works that my students have been able to produce since I've been here at Columbus State. So I'll go ahead and fast forward it. There we go. Is it coming through okay? That works. So that was quite enjoyable to work on. I really enjoyed that project. Um, and next, I'd like to share one of my favorite student films from my time here at CSU. Um, Once students move into their capstone courses, they go through the usual animation production pipeline where they have to pitch a story in Studio One, and by Studio Two, they have to produce the short, the animated short. The first film that I had that the students produced for me was called Ruckus, and I'd like to offer just a little bit of backstory with Ruckus. Ruckus is the story about two siblings, Rue and Riot, and they get into a fight over their favorite toy called Pickle Prince. And it was just really awesome seeing all of the influences that the students pulled into this film. It's actually a compilation of both 2D and 3D animation. So I'll go ahead and share that. Is my audio coming through okay?
It was a little choppy on the last video. It was going in and out, so I'm not
Uh-oh.
sure.
I'm sorry. I'll try to. Is that any better?
When you're talking, it's fine. It was when you were playing the video that the music
Oh,
was going in and out. So I'm not sure if we're going to get all of what's being said. Um,
should I go ahead and run the film, or that'd be
uh,
okay?
we can try it. If the sound starts going out, I'll let you know, and we can. I don't know if there's a link or something you could provide to allow us to see it.
Oh yeah, sure. I can do that. I can just put it into the description. Yeah, I can do that.
That may be the way to go because we only have about 6 minutes left, and I would like to be able to offer people an opportunity to ask you guys some questions.
Sure.
Um,
Should I just go ahead and put it inside of the chat?
yes, please.
Awesome. Adding it now.
And if you don't mind, stop sharing your screen.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Thank you all so much. There's so much there to discuss and unpack. I'm gonna open it up for questions from the audience. You all are welcome to either put in the chat or unmute yourself to ask your questions. It might go a little faster if we do the unmute. Let's see. Just checking for questions. And Anna, if you can help me kind of keep an eye out.
I will be happy to do so.
This wasn't a question, it was just a comment. I've sworn never to touch any 3D. Oh, it jumped on me. Any 3D package again. My brain almost fried. So I guess it's not for everyone. While people are kind of thinking up there some questions, I did have a few, like the Demetrius, the video that you showed. Was that an improv dance or was it choreographed specifically? Like, was it a choreographed?
It was choreographed, yes. It was a choreographed piece.
And was it a collaboration with another department at the university or completely?
Yeah, I actually collaborated with Professor Amy. She's in the dance department, and we were having lunch one day, and she's like, hey, I would love to work on a piece with you. And then she choreographed the motion. We got her into a motion capture suit. And I took that data and then attached it to the character that I developed in my.
Something that I noticed from all of you guys talking in terms of, I guess that self-taught aspect, that kind of jump in there and figure it out. I mean, are you doing most of your learning from, well, nowadays there's a lot of tutorials and videos, but when you were first getting started and wanting to experiment and go into areas that may not necessarily have been fully taught in the programs that you were in, were you learning primarily from books, or were there other resources that you accessed? I'm just curious about that process as talking to other folks that obviously are going to have to kind of learn and adjust as new programs and new technology comes out. Like, how are you capturing handling, manipulating, capturing all of that? I'm the kind of person, I like to have a tutorial step by step. Other folks jump in and say, well, this is what I wanted to do, and then look up the things to make it do that. Any thoughts, comments?
Well, I mean, with all the 3D stuff, I started out learning all of it during my master's degree at SCAD, and I kind of shied away from it because it was so overwhelming at first for me. And then when I started teaching at the Art Institute, like I said, they wanted me to teach. I was really good in the animation, but I wasn't so good at modeling. And I remember D. Cunningham was one of our coordinators, and he was just a whiz at 3D. You remember D. And I kind of latched on to him and Paul Orlando and just kind of would sit in on their classes. Paul, not so much as D, because we had different schedules. But D would let me kind of sit in on his class, and I would just sit there and kind of absorb everything I could. And believe it or not, and I think the other professors will agree with me, I learned so much from my students. So much. They'll show me things that I didn't know about new softwares all the time. When I was going to SCAD, they were barely getting Toon Boom. And then when I went to Art Institute, they were like, yeah, we want you to teach 2D animation in Toon Boom. And I was like, I've never touched the software. So it kind of touched back what Demetrius had said, the software always changes, and you shouldn't be intimidated by that, because if you know the foundations of animation and you're really solid in those skills, then picking up a software is like a really complex brush. That's how I always saw it, and that's how I try to tell my students. That's sort of my experience. And I'm not a book person. I like to dive right in, and I mash all the buttons, and I see what they do, and I try to do a project that doesn't mean anything right off the bat, so that I don't care if I mess it up, and then just try to get really comfortable with the different interfaces, especially when it comes to 3D. Hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, you nailed it, Sandy. Just
Exactly.
buttons and see what they do.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Just play.
Yeah, play.
I think especially now with just this sort of revolutionary wave of like virtual production, and like how it's sort of, allowing animators to see their real time, finished product, by actually not following a regular render engine, but, let's say going to Unreal Engine to produce the actual animated content. Experimentation is part of the battle, and just, it's part of the fun as well. Not getting so caught up on the overwhelming, amount of information, because fun fact, whether it's your professor or, professional mentors, like, we don't know everything. We're learning every day just like you are, and then it's so intimidating when, I mean, even for us, imagine learning a particular workflow and perfecting it, and then realizing 2 months down the line, everything you learned is completely obsolete. Now you got to move on to the next thing, right? So we're in the trenches with you. It's just finding that avenue that speaks to you, and then also, I guess, figuring out your love, your interest. Like you don't have to be, a animator per se to work professionally. There's so many other jobs that go into producing animated content, and not everyone's cut out to be a generalist. Some people refuse to fight through the graph editor in Maya, to understand how to not fight gimbal locks and these things, and snapping of joints. I get it. I understand. So I always tell students, explore and have fun on the journey. Maybe 3D isn't your your thing, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine.
So it is 9:01. I know we're running over just a few minutes here. I do want to ask one more question, and that is, do you all have any recommendations for film festival do's and don'ts, since you all have done the circuits?
I don't know if there's any don'ts. I think you should just submit and do. I think that, when you create your films, content usually isn't censored unless it's, something really, really terrible, like hate speech or something. We kind of try to shy away from anything like that. But I think that, I would dive right in, tell your story, even if it's abstract in nature, get your expression out there and submit it to as many film festivals as possible. And don't be shy about putting it into national and international film festivals. You never know what's going to resonate with the juror that's looking at your film. I've been a juror now for 2 different film festivals, and you never know. And I always tell my students with film festivals, especially if you're going to go into animation, why are you doing your film in animation? Could it be done in live action? What makes it special, and what can you do with the medium of animation to tell your story? And, like I said, it could also be abstract in nature. So I'd say dive right in.
I'm just going to piggyback off of that for a split second. The only don't do is just don't not submit your work. Put it out there. So I agree with you 100%, Sandy.
Okay. And Tim, you get the last. Is there anything you want to say? It could be referring to that or something else.
Fail as fast as you can. Don't be afraid to fail.
Agree wholeheartedly.
Oh, thank you all so much. I know that there was a request in the chat that you all add your contact information in the chat, if you don't mind sharing that, so that people can
I'm on
find
my wife's computer. You could copy and paste that for me. That'd be awesome. I don't have any of my links.
Oh no, go ahead. I think also while we're on here, Jade had a question. Did you type it into the chat, Jade? I wouldn't want that to get lost.
I didn't see her question, but hopefully she will type it up or speak out.
Okay.
So just once again, I want to say thank you to you all. And I also want to let folks know that this is the kickoff for our Fast Film Festival. So we do have some other events that are scheduled. There's a Stop Motion Basics on February 4th, Thursday, from 4 to 5. And then we'll have another intro to stop motion by Kieran Quinn from Asifa South, which if any of you all are in the Atlanta area, or it's not just Atlanta, but it's our local branch of an international animation organization. And then the Georgia Tech Libraries will do a post-production tips for using iMovie. and hopefully we'll have another speaker talking about the power of animation for social change. And then if you're interested in making your own animation for the film festival, those submissions are due on March 5th. So you have a whole month to jump right in and make something like you guys were saying. Our theme this year is Community, the World as We Know It. So that could be the world as it currently is, the world as we knew it in the past, or the world as you know it or would like to know it for the future. You can find more information about the Fast Film Fest on the Robert C. Williams Museum of Papermaking website, paper.gatech.edu. And if you like what you see and would like to support the museum, we welcome donations to help support programming. You can access that at mygeorgiatech.giving/papermaking-museum. It's a long one, but it's there on the top there.
And the link is posted in the chat as well.
Thank you, Anna. So we'll get Tim's contact pasted in the chat, and I truly thank you all. It was inspiring, very interesting. I could listen to you all talk all day long. I really enjoyed the insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Malik and Drew, for coming.
And I'm just trying to grab. Tim, did you want your LinkedIn? Is that what you want in there, or your?
Oh, Tim, your mic's off.
Yeah, I'm only Tim Steele at SCAD, so it should be pretty easy to find on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
No,
I'm not really on social media anymore, so that's all I got.
I know. I tried to find you guys on Facebook right now, and neither of you guys, I couldn't find you guys.
Yeah, I like to stay in the Hobbit hole too. And come
I
out
understand.
here.
I know.
I get it.
All right, it's taking me just a second. I had everything closed out.
Oh, let's see if I can find it real quick.
Let's see. Here we go.
Yeah, how about this? If you just want to contact me, there's my email.
Oh, there you go.
It's taking so long.
That's all right. I gave him my email. That's probably way faster than going through LinkedIn.